What's going on, everyone? It is an emergency episode of the WVSports.com podcast. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Keenan Cummings as always. But it is a bye week for the Mountaineers on the football side, but it is not a bye week as far as news. As of this morning, it was reported by multiple outlets and then confirmed by us here at WestVirginiaSports.com that defensive coordinator Jordan Lesley and the West Virginia football program have parted ways. So Lesley has been here with Neil Brown since he became the head coach of the Mountaineers in 2019. But this year for Lesley has not been a good one for this defense. They rank 14th in the Big 12 in scoring defense, 13th in total defense, 15th in pass for defense. They're tied for last in interceptions. They're last in opponent third down conversion percentage, 13th in the Big 12 in opponent fourth down conversion percentage. This year, they have given up 290 or more passing yards 4 times and 250 or more passing yards 5 times. That is as many times as they gave up 250 plus last year and more times than they gave up 290 plus last year. PFF has this team as the worst coverage grade in the country, 13th worst overall defensive grade, and 34th lowest in pass rush grade. And then a couple numbers, Jordan Lesley will be owed the rest of his $775,000 this year, and then $800,000 next year, which is on his contract, but that can be mitigated if he gets a job elsewhere. And special teams coordinator and inside linebackers coach Jeff Koonz will be taking over the defensive coordinator duties. So, Keenan, just your overall reaction, thoughts on the move from Brown and this team?
You just had a feeling that if something was going to happen, this was going to have to be the move. Really from, one – and listen, coaches don't make moves because people get mad online. I understand that. But the angst over Jordan Lesley the last 2 years, even last year, when they struggled at times, the year before, really it's gone back for a while now. A lot of people have been upset with, for whether accurate or not, they've been upset with him, and he hasn't helped himself this year with some of the things he said in interviews, some of the things that's happened. Last week, against Arizona, we talked about it, trying to run some Tampa 2 and getting your linebacker matched up in the zone coverage with the best receiver in the country, 30 yards down the field. So I understand the frustration. I think that this was pretty much Neil Brown's, I don't want to say trump card, but really the best move he could make to appease some of the fan base and really try to get this team together because, what you're doing wasn't working. You've tried a lot of different things. You've done a lot of different things. You've mixed up. You've tried different coverages. It's not working. So, we go back to that. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. So I think that this is not a shocking move by any means. I'm more shocked that Neil did it than that the fact it was needed to be done. This is the first time that I can recall that in his 6 years here that Neil's made any kind of coaching change in season that he decided to do. It's been reported that, this was Neil's decision. It wasn't something that was pressed on him. So I think that it's interesting. And, putting Coons in that role, I think he's going to be good for that. He's a leader of men. He's a guy that people can rally around. I think it's a good choice. You obviously, with the climate right now and the way the secondary struggled, while I think Shadon is qualified, I'm not sure that would have been the best move. So you look at what Jeff's been able to do during his career, it makes a lot of sense. I think that this is probably the best move to try to rally the defense over the last 4 weeks. A trial period per se. I'm not sure if Jeff's the long-term guy, but he's going to have a chance here to show what he can do. And maybe West Virginia turns it around. Maybe they get healthier. Maybe they make some plays, and this is a better defense down the stretch. But it just became abundantly clear that whether Neil Brown was going to do it or not, this was the move to make if you kind of want to appease some people out there that are really upset. And we've talked about this, weekly, Wes, about just the tension, the turmoil, whatever you want to call it out there, the angst, how mad people are in general. I think that this was probably the best way to kind of cut that a little bit. And, now you got 4 games left, let's see what you can do.
Yeah, I think first off that going to your point of how fans feel and how kind of there had to be a move made to, as you said, kind of look towards them and say, okay, we understand
We hear you.
Yeah, exactly. And it was the same problems over and over again. And I think that's also kind of why you could see this coming is that for the last 4 weeks, we've talked about how there's just been wide open receivers down the field for opposing teams. It's been easy. And I think that when it's easy and it's the same thing over and over again, that's when there's a problem. And as you said, it would be somewhat insane to think that there isn't a problem or that this problem would just get fixed because they've been saying the same things for 8 weeks now, Keenan, and the problems are still there. The problems that we talked about after the Pitt game are still there here. And so you can just kind of look at different points in the season where it just hasn't worked, right? Like go back to the first game against Penn State. There was that deep pass in the 2-minute situation in the first half. Yeah, there might have been OPI, but you still get the point. Then you go to the Pitt game and they had 2nd and 30 and they score a touchdown and then they score right again. You're still not over
2nd and 30 might be the picture you hang up about this
right.
year. With
Kansas, they played well in the past, but Kansas is not a team that's going to beat you with the pass. They're going to beat you with the run. But then you look at the Kansas State game, they just threw the ball down the field. They did whatever they wanted pretty easily. And then obviously last week against Arizona, while West Virginia won the game, they almost lost it. And they almost lost it because that secondary late in the fourth quarter was getting torched. They had linebackers on a 6'5" athletic freak of nature, and it was just a mess. And I think Jeff Koonz is a great coach. I mean, just listen to him talk in general, and you think that, okay, this guy's a good leader. And I'm interested to see what changes they can make, if any, in the next week or so, because they do have the bye week. And so if you were going to make a move, it would come during the bye week because it's hard to do something on short notice and then have 3 days to prepare, yada, yada, yada. Now you have a week and a half to kind of get ready for Cincinnati, to get things right if you're this defense, to kind of, if you're Jeff Koonz, draw up what you want to do because you will have some level of buy-in, I think, from this team still. I think they know that there's still life ahead in the month of November, especially after getting that win on the road against Arizona. So it's a move that I think we all saw coming. I don't think we knew when it was going to come. But if you're Neil Brown, I think he was starting to feel the pressure. And I think the pressure was getting to him. I think you could tell it by kind of how his tone had changed in the last couple of weeks, especially after those 2 losses at home. If you beat Iowa State, you beat Kansas State, I'm not sure we're having this conversation here today, but you didn't. And you didn't in large part because the defense, but also the offense struggled at times against both teams. But it's been a continuous problem. The defense has this season, especially that secondary. I mean, I listed all those numbers at the top. And so something had to happen. Neil Brown felt the pressure. Neil Brown made a move, and we'll see if this team is better or worse because of it.
I think the only thing that kind of bothers me about this, other than obviously someone losing their job, you never want to see anybody lose their job.
100%.
Obviously, he's well compensated. I understand that. But I think the thing that bothers me the most about this is why wait another day? You could have did this yesterday, asked some questions about it. Ask some questions about it,
PR.
Yeah, I know. I get it. But you could have made this move yesterday and answered some of the questions that I have still on, who steps into another coaching spot.
Yeah, like who's going to be the special teams coordinator, right?
Yeah, who fills in there. It's going to be hard for Jeff to do both of those. I would imagine probably Tony Thompson or one of those people take over since you can allow coaching now from practically everyone on the field. But yeah, I'm curious kind of how that works, how that's going to go. And obviously, what's the plan long term now? Is this a trial period for Jeff? Are they already looking for a new coordinators or somebody, they have in mind? Those are questions that I would have. And I don't know if Neil can answer any of those right now, truthfully. You read his statement, have you looked at the statement, Wes, he put out?
Yeah,
I read that.
Do you want to read it off? You want me to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Okay.
This is the statement that Neil released. He said, I met with Coach Lesley this morning and informed him that we are making a change at the defensive coordinator position. I'm very thankful for the investment Jordan and his family have made in West Virginia football. Jordan has been a key part of my staff for almost a decade. He is a good football coach and a great man. I know he will have much success moving forward, and we will do everything we can to help him on that journey. These decisions are never easy, but I'm confident this change is in the best interest of our program and puts us in the best position to finish strong. Our players have a tremendous opportunity in front of them, and I know they will give their all for WVU. Jeff Koonz will step up and serve as the defensive coordinator moving forward. I know he and our entire staff will do everything they can to help us succeed. A lot said there, pretty much everything you would expect. Telling to me that, Neil says that, pretty much basically said, this was his decision. He felt that it was in the best interest of the program to go in this direction. And I don't have any arguments there. I mean, Jordan has had some good seasons. He's had some seasons where the defense hasn't performed. Some of that's personnel related, but some of that is taking chances. There's been times where, fans have pointed to certain examples of calls, coverages they've made, and decisions that they've made. And while I always appreciated the fact that Jordan stand behind what he called, sometimes it didn't get it done, and that sticks with people. So that's where we find ourselves.
I also think it's telling that Neil moved on from one of his guys that has been with him for a long time. I think in this industry, it is really hard when you have been with someone like that Neil and Jordan have been together for such a long period of time. It's hard to part ways, and it's hard to part ways in what feels like somewhat of an abrupt manner. Maybe they both saw it coming, but it's never easy, and it's never easy to do that when it's your buddy. And so I think that's also telling of how Neil feels. And like, I go back to that. Like, he definitely feels the pressure. I think the noise has gotten to him to an extent of that he's making a move, because if he doesn't feel the pressure, if he feels content, he's not making a move. And so
No.
I think he realizes that they had two opportunities at home against top 25 teams, and they blew them both. And now they are, the big stat that everyone talks about is how they play against good teams compared to how they play against bad teams. And unfortunately for West Virginia, you don't have a lot of great teams left on the schedule. I mean, I would say Cincinnati and Texas Tech are probably your two best teams left. And so, I mean, you can go change some minds, but you can't change all the minds. But this move does help change a little bit of the narrative in this cloud, I would say, that was surrounding the program for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and let's just be frank here too. I mean, on top of the uncertainty and the angst and all that, it comes down to results. This is always a result-based business. I think every game this season, almost, West Virginia's had at least one major bust. At least 6 of the 8. Probably not Albany, and I don't believe Kansas, but maybe.
Kansas had a couple of long touchdowns, but they were on those like reverse sweeps.
Yeah, some of that's credit to what they do, but just busts, like wide open plays where guys just weren't in position, guys weren't lined up, and ultimately, you can fault the personnel for some of that, but that falls on the coordinator in the end to get guys lined up, get the play in, get things going, and for better or worse, we'll see how this move is defined in the future. But right now, I think that it was probably the only move that Neil Brown could make that made sense from not only a football standpoint, but also a lot of the reasons we've discussed before.
Yeah. So, Coons, do you think anything changes schematically here next week against Cincinnati? What are your first expectations? I think they'll change a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure how you can keep doing the same thing, truthfully, but I'm curious what your thoughts are there.
I think they'll try to change some coverage things, but you kind of are what you are at this point in the season. Yeah, they could try, but it's really difficult.
Yeah, there's obviously not wholesale changes happening because we're in of this thing. But
and sometimes it's just good to get a fresh face, a fresh voice. Sometimes now it doesn't always. It's not always a kind of an arrow to success, but it has worked a lot. Kind of getting a fresh voice, fresh take, and it'll be interesting to see how he differs from Jordan and how he calls a game. Is he going to be aggressive? Is he how is he going to play? Will he play more man coverage, more zone? That's stuff we don't know right now. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to take another guy and have him run the exact same defense that he was running before. You're going to have a little bit of changes, but what nuances those are and what that means, we should find out in the next week or so. Especially, hopefully we get to talk with Jeff next Monday and kind of get an idea on what his plans are. And he's not going to give us too much, obviously. You want to be able to surprise the opponent, but just a little bit about his philosophy on the whole thing.
Yeah, I think certainly questions will be answered from Neil's front, from Jeff's front, and hopefully give some clarity to everyone involved on the situation. So anything else from you?
Nah, I think this is what it is. We'll see how West Virginia responds. We talked about this right after the Arizona game. They're 4-4 right now. It feels bad for West Virginia if you're a supporter or a fan of the program. but you got 4 winnable games. You win these 4 games, you have a new defensive coordinator.
Little bowl game.
You go to a bowl game, you win that. You're 9-4 2 years in a row. I don't care who you beat.
Yeah.
Not 9 wins is 9 wins. Now that's getting ahead of ourselves. Understand that. You got to win 4 more games. This team has not. Yeah. This team's only shown the ability to win 3 games, I think, twice in a row under Neil Brown, maybe once. It's not been great, but we'll see. There's a lot left to play out, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, Neil said that some changes had to happen after the Arizona game. He said that about the secondary, and a change sure did take place. So I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Keenan Cummings. If you made it this far, we do appreciate you listening. Keep it locked on our website, on our message boards. If you want to talk about it, if you want to talk about it with other fans, hop on our message boards. It's a good way to interact with a lot of people, and we will definitely have stuff about football, about basketball coming out in the next week. So if you made it this far, we do appreciate you listening once again, and this is the WVSports.com podcast.